Yes, this meeting is being recorded, unfortunately. It is the NRL Market Watch podcast. It's proudly brought to you by topsport.com.au. It is the home of the best multi and some really annoying Queenslanders at the moment. But anyway, that's the way it goes. The usual suspects are in attendance. I'm talking about Tristan Merlehan, the number one seed up there at TopSport, and Gerard Condon. He's from reading the play. He's also saying, I don't go for this side or that side. But anyway, he's distanced himself already from the New South Wales Blues. And yet we are just one game into this series, round 14 of the National Rugby League coming up this weekend as well. Hello, gentlemen.
G'day, boys. And yes, it's very, very good to be chatting to you less than 24 hours after what happened on a great and momentous Wednesday night for all Queensland fans out there. And it was even better that, from my perspective, TopSport had a good result on the game. And from our perspective, most of us raised some charity fund very well. I don't know if you might be able to weigh in, Gerard, if there's anyone that did happen to miss out on their selections. But there was certainly some good funds that lobbed into the charity account, 7,727. So I might let you go through that in a little bit more detail, Gerard.
Well, Tristan, I'm just not sure if we've got long enough for this segment, but I think tipping Queensland to win, tipping Queensland plus 4.5, tipping Queensland for the series win, now into $1.42. You could have got $2.30 this time yesterday. Tipping Holmes and Coates for anytime try scorers. Well, one missed and one was a lovely result, suggesting Munster and Tedesco somewhere around the man of the match, and probably the best two performers on the park. And anyway, listen, it's a beautiful sunny day here in Hawaii. I just flew in this morning. I'm just lapping up the result of the last 24 hours. How are you, Jimmy? You look like you're boxed into a bit of a booth there with some padding.
I'm in a glass case of emotion is where I am right now, to quote the great Ron Burgundy. But look, first of all, well done, boys, getting all those tips up. I can't believe Teddy basically lazy for the whole 80 minutes, right? Didn't even have a go at trying to score a try. But anyway, what an incredible game of footy. And just when you think it can't go any further, it does. I've got to pay particular attention to the coach of Queensland, Billy Slater, because I said it on radio. I think I said it on the podcast on Tuesday. He has not put a foot wrong. And it got even better when it got to the game and the scenario planning. And it's like, okay, Coates out, right, Holmes wing, Capel centre, cover that. Nanai out, first involvement, right, Cotter out of the middle, put him on the edge. Cotter has to play 80. That's okay. We can make that work. Tino Fasua-Malaawi, underappreciated his contribution during the course of the match as well. Harry Grant's on the bench, only gets 43 minutes. That's okay. The 43 minutes are magical and dangerous, all wrapped into one for Queensland and New South Wales respectively. It's a great game of footy. Didn't quite get the result we were looking for, but everyone's, in New South Wales throwing the baby. Hang on. I haven't finished yet. Everyone in New South Wales throwing the baby out with the bathwater. After all that, and New South Wales don't play well, they lose by 6.
And Jimmy, you're 100% right. Some of the media written this morning and spoken about throwing a baby out with the bathwater is just hysterical, the reaction. Some of us actually did get the result we were looking for, Jimmy, but in all seriousness, it was an absolutely outstanding game. It's why Origin is just the pinnacle. The quality of performance, regardless who ends up being the winner, the quality of performance, the players that it finds that lift at that level, and I think the quality of their career and performance then starts to move to a new level. And clearly, the look forward for Queensland has just had an outstanding career and went to another level last night. The promise that the wing, Queen, in particular Cobbo, a left-footer to drop it to his right and put the ball through like he did. Jimmy, we spoke when we did our pre-podcast, and I think I also touched on it a couple of weeks ago. One of the things I liked about what Queensland did in picking their team, which then led me down the path of liking them to potentially win the game, but I also thought it was a strong flavour around taking the plus start, was he picked guys that were in form and he picked guys that were workers. And I thought the thing that they did last night, if you wanted to just take a statistical analysis of the game, Queensland actually missed more tackles than New South Wales last night. Now, most people watching the game would say, hang on a sec, that wasn't how I thought it looked. The thing Queensland did was scramble and work and scramble and work. And as Nathan Cleary said post-game, they saved more tries than us. They made more important plays when it mattered. And that ended up being the core. And then through the middle, I thought that two-prong that they not just touched on worked superbly. And to see Hunt come back on when he did, and then all of a sudden that break down the left edge, and that just completely turned the momentum of what was unfolding with the play. It then gave Cherry Evans and Munster a little bit of room to play with. Munster was just enormous. And Tedesco, wow, I mean, he picked up and carried for mine some of the blokes that were poor underperformers last night. Two parts of the game, Jimmy. One was through the middle. I thought New South Wales were very disappointing there. And as the game went on, I was also really disappointed into the second half. Haas was playing on a second or a third play and playing two passes off the ruck, which in my opinion is not his strength and not where New South Wales needed to be strong. And that was close to the play to ball and get forward and then create a little bit of room. The other thing was that they just started to go sideways in the first half and then kept going sideways all game long.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that Queensland's defence was to the point where they rushed up to put pressure on that play out the back that Yeo does to Cleary or Cleary does to Luai. And then there was no plan B. That there didn't seem to be, okay, that's happening to us, let's adjust. There didn't seem to be that response from New South Wales. You talked about more tackles missed. They ran for 200 metres less than New South Wales, but
there you go.
It came up with some big plays. I want to make mention of Carrigan, Cobbo and Cotter. Just amazing. Fasua Malaawi, amazing. And I liked Ponga, that his touches were nowhere near the number of Tedesco, but there was quality about them, and it had that Billy Slater fingerprints all over them, I thought. Tristan, what about game two? What about series overall now that they've started with the first win, Queensland?
Yeah, and I just want to echo the play that I thought really changed the game, and just the way that Billy timed his interchanges was Pat Carrigan. I thought he was immense. Like when he came on and made those couple of changes and it was phenomenal. Yeah, exciting. And as you say, move on to game two now, where we have got an absolute coin flip where New South Wales now are $1.85, Queensland $1.95, and the line's a half. So, it's not really relevant, that line there, but 185, 195 at the moment, which I think just indicates how even this series is going to be. Queensland go in as favourites now to win the series, obviously on the back of getting that first up win and the match being at home in game three, if it needs to go that far. $1.42 Queensland, $2.90 New South Wales. We've got our correct score market up where Queensland 3-0. I had a chat to the boys actually a little bit earlier because we had it a little bit higher. There's a little bit of a higher price around the marketplace, and I know you're shaking your head there, Jimmy, but realistically, Queensland are $1.95 in game two. What price are they in Queens at Suncorp if they win game two? And you can get $3.50 out there in a few spots, and that's indicating that means the market suggests they'll be $1.80 at Suncorp. If it's $1.95 at Perth and they win, there's no way in the world that they're $1.80 in my opinion there. So 2-1's the favoured option, $2.25. New South Wales 2-1 is the same as the series odds at $2.90. But just sort of, when you're looking at these markets, price it up in your own head. What is the betting in game three, depending on whichever result occurs, and then you might be able to find a bit of value in that market.
Well, I tell you, you're 100% right. If Queensland win in Perth, I'll walk backwards with no clothes on down the Gold Coast to get my money on at $1.80 about Queensland being that price in the third game. Absolutely no way that happens. And just to support how strong a favourite they would end up being, 16 of the last 22 series where Queensland have won game one, they've gone on to win it, 16 out of 22. The other staggering fact that I stumbled across this morning is of the last 28 Origin series, if New South Wales or Queensland were to lose at or Suncorp, no one has ever then turned it around to win the series. So there's so much stacked against New South Wales. I think it's a really interesting scenario to end up at a neutral ground in Perth for game two. Jimmy, coming back to the key point of New South Wales' attack, in games 1 and 2 of last year's series, where they absolutely smashed Queensland and handed them a new one. 10 of the 12 tries that they scored in those first 2 games were from Turbo, Latrell, and Ed O'Carr. Now, those 2 guys clearly missing last night, which we all knew. The key factor moving forward is Turbo won't be back. Does Latrell end up getting any game time under his belt? Do they end up picking him? If they do pick him and they play him on the left, whether they then put Whiten, what mix does that unfold? Do they continue with Staggs on the right? And I can tell you, you can go back and watch the game 5 times. He did not pass the ball once. And I think missed probably 3 or 4. 2 of them in particular led to line breaks. So there's a lot of dancing around what they end up doing with selections. Personally, I'd like to see if he's now moving into that sort of form, I'd have Whiten at 6. I think they need a big body at 6. They need to change up what they do with attack. But I think Freddie's got a few headaches to work through.
Yeah, well, it's over to him now. He's got to find that response to what Billy Slater was doing. By the way, if you're walking naked backwards to the Gold Coast, I'm driving north to the sunny coast, just to stay clear of that.
Well, I'll probably hide the sun for you.
Look, there's so much to play out. I don't think I could play Latrell without a game under his belt.
No, I agree.
Just don't think I could do that. And especially given the fact that I think in the top 3 players for New South Wales was Jack Whiten. So, what do you do with and is Whiten at 14 what you're looking for? Because the Hunt Grant 9-14 combo seemed to work better than an everyman that's going to go there and try to cover so many positions. So, we've got a bit of club form to play out before that. We'll see how that goes, Jared.
Lastly, Jimmy, just on those selections, Tupou's played 11 years of first grade as a left edge winger. Ends up being, and played Origin a couple of years ago as a left edge winger under Fittler. Comes in last night and gets moved to the right, which I found really surprising. I understand Tupou handles both sides. That wasn't the issue. There were times I thought when the ball went to that edge and attack that Tupou was missing. He wasn't there on time. He wasn't in the right place. I thought that's a question mark. What happens there moving forward? The other I just also found interesting was that Ryan Matheson has been very good on the left edge, yet last night was played in the middle or a little bit on the right. I know he can play right, but I think his form coming into the game has been left. Just some interesting changes in the selections and the mix-up of what they do, but they really need a dominant front row again.
It's interesting what happens with Murray. Cook plays best coming off a Murray quick play the ball, which we saw at different stages, but Murray didn't start. I thought, anyway, we have to wait. I think it's 17 days and then we get State of Origin number 2 over there in Perth. So in the meantime, we've got some club action and some club news too. So quickly, Michael Maguire relieved of his position at the West Tigers. On the very same day, Nathan Brown essentially relieved of his position at the Warriors. What was your take on that, boys, Tristan?
Yeah, well, it's I don't know whether it was planned that way for the news to unfold when all the Origin was in the headlines and they could maybe duck and weave a little bit, because I'm sure it would have been a much bigger story if it happened most other weeks and maybe gives the caretaker coach a little bit of time. But yeah, I don't know. I think we've been talking about Madge and the Tigers for a while, and they've been at times throughout the year, but they're down on trips. They're also missing a lot of players. Like, who's going to come in and do a better job? I don't know. It's a real tricky one there. And then the Warriors, like this excuse about not wanting to go back to New Zealand. Like I didn't realise when you signed up to play or coach for the New Zealand Warriors, you were under some thought process that you never have to go there. So I think that's a bit of a cop out, but obviously it's to tell a storyline. But yeah, it's been a lot of coaching movement around the three of the clubs, and I know Jared has mentioned on Twitter and social media a few times that there might be a little bit more still to come. So it's tricky when you're down the bottom. It's a result-driven business, and ultimately those teams haven't been succeeding.
Well, I think in our pre-season discussions, we all suggested that this looked like a year where not only Maguire but others were under a bit of focus. Well, we're already 3 coaches down. Jimmy, you were right with what you said last week about the Tigers, that, if they didn't act, given all the leaks that are coming, then it was only an indictment on them and a greater embarrassment. I think it's disappointing for Maguire, but it clearly was coming. they're now, I guess, in a holding pattern with what unfolds there, and their management just leaves so much to be desired. Brown doesn't surprise me because of the results and everything that was going on. And I agree, Tristan. I mean, if that's your job and what you're all about, and you sign a contract for a 3-year period, then going back to New Zealand was always going to be a part of that. It doesn't surprise me. What they end up doing there is just so important with how they move forward in the next season and at a grassroots level and all of those sorts of things. So again, that's a really interesting one to watch. And now we've got everybody jockeying for spots for who ends up being able to sign Seraldo, or who goes to the Bulldogs, or who goes to the Warriors, or is Seraldo the P for the job at the Tigers, or is there pressure at the Knights? Is there pressure at the Titans? Does Walden a 5-year extension on the back of his winning run?
Yeah, it's one of those situations where circumstances seem to suit certain coaches. One of the things I find really interesting is about the evolution of coaches and how they improve and where they're going with their career and how they can make enhancements to it. You look at those ones, they're constantly learning. Bellamy and Bennett and Robinson and even to a degree Hasler. They're constantly evolving. What I see in a lot of these coaches is they think that what they applied to that job will get them that job, and that's what they apply to it. Whereas there isn't that learning that they take, which they probably demand of their players, but don't actually have it of themselves too. So I'm saying that as a general statement. I think Michael Maguire is a fine coach, but needs to evolve. I think Nathan Brown is done as a coach. I think Cameron Seraldo is hot property right now. Make the most of it, because you're going to get offered these crazy deals that are going to be life-changing for you. So, I firmly believe that he wants to do it. So go for it, because your life.
The other thing in the mix of that too, Jimmy, is if there is a bit of a question mark about who the next man up in some of these situations might be, does that then mean that, Billy Slater ends up growing into this series and performing as an Origin coach? Does he stay there for another couple of years and then that starts to raise his hand as a potential coach somewhere down the track? Fittler's been linked to the Bulldogs job, rightly or wrongly. We'll wait and see what unfolds there. So there's 2 Origin coaches, and there's some good quality coaches in England at the moment. I mean, McNamara, Wolf, certainly just 2 to name. So yes, a lot to unfold. Jimmy, before we get to the games, you've been very polite in not mentioning your lunch bet win last weekend.
Yeah, what was that? The Titans, they were going to come out and blow everyone away, and Taumalolo, was he in? Was he out? Did it make a difference? Didn't matter. In fact, yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Jared. Remiss of me. So if we have a look at that, Jared. By the way, I thought if Billy Slater's doing an audition to be the next Melbourne Storm coach when Craig Bellamy gives it away at the end of 23, it's a pretty good start, wasn't it? Jared's played 11, won 6, lost 5. That's a +1. We need the for and against column too in this, please, Jared. Tristan, he occasionally plays 9. He's won 3, he's lost 6. Oh dear. Oh, look at me, 15, ready out there, swinging away, 1, 7, lost 8, nearly getting into the positives with this for and against. So really hotting up there, Tristan.
It is. And I couldn't care what happened last Thursday. That was 7 days ago. Let's focus on the last 24 hours and we'll look at trying to arrest that trend in lunch bet over the next few weeks. But yeah, Jimmy, the one thing no one can accuse you of is playing a defensive straight bat in these lunch bets. You're out there swinging harder than Brad Haddon on the 5th day of a test match. So I'm looking forward to seeing what might pop up over the next 8 games. I think there might be some differing opinions this week, and it's going to be a very tricky one to discuss. But I'm also very concerned about the big asterisks Jimmy has next to any of these lunch bets as we talk about all the games today with players may or may not be playing. And I can see it right now. Jimmy wants to be on Penrith if all 17 of the players back up, and if they're all out, he'll be on the Knights at the same line. So looking forward to the negotiations today.
I copped about 53 questions on Twitter last Thursday night about, so was the bet still on or off with Lolo playing? Did Jimmy make money out of this or not?
Just checking. Anyone got what the wind's doing come Saturday afternoon at the SCG? But anyway, we'll get to that very shortly. Righto, let's get into round 14 of the National Rugby League. We've got the Cowboys up against the Dragons. So they've got all those reps are in there. Holmes, probably. Nanai, no. Dearden, yes. Cotter, you couldn't, could you? Ben Hampton and Brendan Elliott have been put back because of those returns that we mentioned. Hylam Lukey is in if Cotter doesn't play for the Dragons. A change to the side that ran around in round 12. Jaden Sullivan onto the bench. Tyrell Fuu-Maono drops out. Ben Hunt, Tarek Sims named, probably. And Jaden Sewer and Josh Maguire listed amongst the reserves. So we'll see how that plays out. What's market saying for this one, Tristan?
Yeah, this is a really tricky one, as you say. The very quick backup for both of these teams, and there's a lot of key players involved here. Now, the market at the moment is 12.5, short of the minus. It's minus 12.5, 185 Cowboys, 195 the Dragons, and 122 the Cowboys to win, $4.40 the Dragons. Now, it opened at 13.5, and I don't know, I just feel it might be a little bit too big with obviously no Nanai. There's a bit of doubt over some of the Cowboys players. You'd probably think both the Dragons back up, but the Cowboys are just so professional, so well coached. They find a way, and I'm sure they've got their plans. I think Dearden coming back into that side will have a big impact as well. So, yeah, 12.5 just seems a touch big to me.
Well, Tristan, as we finish this conversation, it's only game one. If that was a lunch bet, please let me know. I was keen about the Cowboys here. I was wanting to risk them against the line and with their origin outs when they went to Rabina a week ago. And you could not be more impressed with what they did. And yes, the Titans, as the game went on, were just really poor. But to lift as they did to a 32-6 win, they get back home. They've covered 10 of 13 so far this season. 3 times they've been 10-point bigger fast over the line. Right now, they sit at the top of the 16 teams with the best record of covering the line season to date, up against the Dragons, who I personally think are still really scratchy with their form. Most importantly with the Dragons is when they're on the road and they're distant away games. They've lost 12 of the last 14 away games and failed to cover 10 of those 14. For mine, I like the Cowboys back at home, and I just think they look a really happy, confident, high-spirit footy team with a lot of belief, and a coach is doing a great job. I thought the Cowboys were I like them to win. I certainly like them to cover the line.
Is Jason Taumalolo playing, or do we have any understanding of that? Right, okay, just clearing that up. Agree with Jared. Yeah, they're fresh, they're firing. It'll be really interesting to see what happens with Reuben Cotter, because he was just so good. But the challenge is there, right? Back up, buddy, back up, because that's what the great Origin players do, right? And I think that'll be the challenge that will be laid down to him. They're a mile in front of the Dragons. The Dragons have been, they were sloppy and just got there against the Warriors of all teams. They were sloppy and just got there against the Bulldogs of all teams. Put them on a plane and take them up there to far north Queensland. I think it's a recipe for a Cowboys win. I don't mind them at the minus 12.5. Anything from you there, Tristan?
Yeah, I'm happy. I agree with everything you guys say about the Cowboys being dominant and too good. I just have a little thing in the back of my mind. There might be a few guys that miss here, and without having any information, I just think it would be logical, and they've backed up, and the newer guys showed what they can do. So I just feel that when we open the line at 13.5, and we know Nanai's not in, it's only 12.5 now. I just think on numbers there's a chance that might drop in. So I'm happy to take you guys on in a lunch bet in that, as much as if all the players get named in, I'll be in a lot of trouble.
Gee, very high maintenance there, but anyway. What, are you in, Jerry?
Yeah, Jimmy, I'm definitely in. I just want to make sure that you understand that it's Thursday afternoon, and we say we're in for a lunch bet, mate. It means we're in.
Okay, but will we eventually have to pay them and all that?
Mate, Tristan's got this all worked. He just takes the money out of our account.
No, fair enough. All right, lunch bet. We've got it at the 12.5.
12.5.
There we go.
That'll just be the first half.
Yeah, go the Cows. Next up, the Top Sport Titans in action. Oh, dear. Jaden Campbell, hamstring, out. AJ Brimson to fullback. Paul Turner, formerly of the Warriors, comes in at 5'8". Corey Thompson out. Greg Marzou back in. Isan Masters out. Paddy Herbert comes back in. Who knows what's going to happen with Tino? Oh, he's so good last night. That's going to be a question mark around that. Cam Murray, question mark. Jai Arrow, he'll be right. Tavita Totola returns from that head knock. Mark Nichols goes to the bench. He was good last game. Shaq Mitchell drops out. Pete Mamazoulis is a new man on the interchange. Blake Taff goes to 18th man, and there's been a bit of a swap. Tane Milne has moved to the centre. Jackson Paulo goes out to the wing. What about this game, Tristan?
Yeah, this game opened at 6.5, South Sydney favourites. It's now 7.5. There's been a little bit of a push for the Bunnies. As you say, Tino is a big one for the Titans. They need him on the pitch if they're any chance. It's $2.90 the Titans, $1.42 South Sydney. The line's 7.5. Obviously, a few South players have got to try to back up as well. So Cook and Murray are the two keys there. AJ back to fullback, I think, is a positive thing. Obviously, disappointing that Campbell's out for 6 or 8 weeks, because I would have loved to have seen him continue to grow into that spot at fullback. But, in the term, it's not the worst result for the Titans. But yeah, 7.5 the line.
The worry with the Titans now and losing Campbell is that when he's come back, he's added something to their attack, both line break spark, but also points. And when he was out, it was a major problem for them. They've now gone with a young fella in the halves, rookie, certainly some pressure, some risk. They've lost 8 of their last 9. Their last 5 games, they conceded 152 points. So it's 152 and 5. They're now leaking 26 a week. Their record is just abysmal right now. No confidence about them. I was looking for something more out of them last week, and it just wasn't there against a depleted Cowboys. Not a lot to like about the Rabbitohs at the moment, though. They have won their last 7 at the Gold Coast. That gives them a leg up. But, gee, their form's a bit scratchy and patchy, and they have a habit of probably beating these teams down the bottom of the table. But I don't want to get involved in 7.5 in a row. Tippy, it's a game I don't like.
Probably a little bit challenging for maybe even both of you guys to comment, but it seems strange. What's going on at the Titans? It looked so promising, and Justin Holbrook comes back from the UK with an unblemished reputation as far as coaching goes, and there were positive signs. And then from about maybe end of last year, they make the finals, but and probably should have gone through to the second week of the finals, but it's just gone backwards this year. And I don't know. I don't know what it is. Maybe you guys closer to it there can offer an explanation, but it seems strange.
Oh, sorry, Jared, I'll let you, because I know you've probably got some firm thoughts on it. But I guess obviously, as you guys know, we are invested in the Titans now, and I'm desperate for them to succeed, and it just feels a different issue to what you're seeing with teams like the Bulldogs and the Tigers and the Warriors, maybe even too, where even going into this game against the Bunnies, who is grand finalists, you go in there with some confidence that they can cause the upset and can get a win. And I genuinely felt going into that game against the Cowboys, they could do it last week. And they've got moments in every game they play where they can compete with some of those better sides. And they have moments in literally every game where they look one of the worst, or if not the worst team in the comp. And it's just, I think AJ summed it up in his press conference, that they have no resilience. And I don't know how you solve that. Which one is a worse problem to have? It's just so frustrating, because you can see the positivity there, but it's just not translating. And it's just been a really, really disappointing season. And I don't know where the issue lies there. Jared might be able to pinpoint it better, but from a fan's point of view, it's just very frustrating at the moment.
Well, my starting point is making a decision. Do I think the coach can coach? Right now, my answer is still yes. I believe he's a good coach. And you only have to look at the conversation we had around them a week ago, going into that game against the Broncos. They were really well prepared. Their half execution of what they were doing and getting their heads right was right. And again, it comes back to a reflection of the fact that we've seen that so many times before from them under Holbrook. So I do believe the guy is a good coach. I personally would like to see him get one more year through to the end of next year. I personally think the issue is they have really stuffed up the list. They've put a young guy at 9, a young guy at 7, a young guy at 1, and gone with Brimson at 6, and they don't have any other strong leaders. Tino's going to be a very good leader in the future, but right now, as hard as he tries and as good a quality games as he comes up with, like he did a couple of weeks ago, he's still not at the level of a Cameron Smith or one of those sorts of guys that you need, and an experienced front rower and another experienced back rower and maybe an experienced centre. So they've got Foran coming next year. I'd be playing Foran at 6. I'd be playing Sexton at 7, if that's where you believe of your halfback is. Brimson and or Campbell at the back or in the centres, and what you do at 9. But they've got their list is where they've gone wrong. Letting Fogarty go was a big mistake. Some of the other decisions they made, they've got to make some key decisions in addition to Foran about what they do next year. And then I would give Holbrook one more season. But it's really disappointing, the mess that they're now in.
Can't wait till you get all Arthur Laundy on them, Tristan, and storm the offices and say what's going on. I want to have a say in selections. And anyway, we can wait for that, the Top Sport Titan.
I'm just wondering how many of the boys want to follow Anthony Don's footsteps and try to make a trip over to Hollywood. So I don't know. It's that might be where their mentality is at the moment. But no, it's we'll see. Hopefully they start to turn things around this weekend. But where's your thoughts in this weekend's game, boys? Are you on the plus or the minus?
I'd be on the minus. But
I'd be on the minus. In the minus. But
and I can't get involved in any more lunch bets on the Titans. I think I'm not sure what's been more expensive, our sponsorship or the lunch bet losses involving the Titans. So I'm certainly going to not bring out any bait for this one.
All right.
Well, I think Jimmy and I got a message yesterday, Tristan, from your darling wife that was along the lines of that if Titans and Lunchbet and Tristan are mentioned in the same sentence, there will be trouble.
I love it. I love it. A moratorium on lunch bets for the Titans, okay? And that won't change until it's been lifted. So we'll wait and see. Word from the office on that one. Let's get into Saturday night. That's at the SCG. It's the Roosters up against the Storm. James Tedesco has been named. He couldn't possibly play, especially when you've got Joey Manu there. Daniel Tupou, obviously. Lindsay Collins was excellent last night. Fletcher Baker back to the bench. Saluka Fafita drops out. Looks like Waria Hargreaves could be in. We'll have to keep an eye on team sheets of this one. Big Nelson back for the Storm. Interesting to see with Harry Grant, 43 minutes last night. What do they do? Tui Kamikamica, Brandon Smith back to the bench. Cameron Munster, Felice Kafusi, Coates will be out, obviously. So we'll have to wait and see what they do. But good luck putting a market together for this one, Tristan.
Yeah. This one was always going to be one of the trickiest games to price. And it's a strange one because, like, in theory, if you're Melbourne, you probably feel this is a good game to rest a few players considering their position on the ladder. But Bellamy's not that sort of coach. He wants to win every game. They have a big rivalry with the Roosters. And then, you know, the Roosters probably look at this game as well where you say Teddy couldn't possibly, but is this their chance to get a win against a real high-quality side where if you play them in most other weeks, they're probably a lot bigger underdogs than what they are, and this might kickstart the season. Are on the Michael Jackson moonwalk out of the 8. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the top 6 bet as we get deeper into the season. But at the moment, the market's got at $2.70 the Roosters, $1.48 the Storm, and 4.5's the line. But they put in a very, very disappointing effort last weekend against the Raiders, and they'll certainly need to lift the Roosters, even if Melbourne are depleted, to match it with them, because we know how well coached they are, regardless who they put onto the field.
Well, this game and the next game started a week at 6.5 between them, and we now have 4.5. And gee, I'm not sure where that confidence comes about wanting to take the Roosters at plus 4.5. Their record at the SCG is good. Their record when going back to the SCG off a loss is very good. But gee, they need Tedesco and possibly a couple of others to be able to play here because, like Tristan, I thought they were really poor in that game against the Raiders last week, off a very good result the week before against the Sharks. And that's been a bit of the Roosters this year. You know, good at beating up sides, right down the table or around them, and then dropping games that they shouldn't have, like that one in Canberra last week. But it all comes down to final name teams here, because who's in for both of them is going to be so key. Storm got a very good record over the Roosters. They've won the last 4. The 2 games last season, in total, they flogged them 66-4. So their recent record over them is very strong. They've also won their last 4 games in Sydney. But, does Harry Grant play? Does Munster play? The makeup of their team is so many ifs and buts. I'm tipping the Storm. I just couldn't touch the game at the line. I'm just not sure where it ends up.
Yeah, Munster and Tedesco. Everyone was suggesting that they're the 2 best players for Queensland and New South Wales respectively, and here they are 3 days later. They're going to meet up again. It's a great matchup if they play. I would expect that Tedesco doesn't. I think he was exhausted in the last 10 or 15 minutes of that game last night, especially when he got Manu that can come in and play that position. The interesting thing about Manu, he'd be really hard to play with, because I don't know where he's going to end up. Like he'll crab across field, and if you're setting up for a set where you go, okay, well, we want to hit him here, and then we want to come back here, and then like Joey throws that all out the window. Great player, statistically incredible, but hard to fulfill what you want to do, especially when you've probably got 2 5'8" playing for the Roosters, Sammy Walker and Luke Keary. So, a couple of times they get caught on the wrong leg kicking and they get pressure on the inside, and what do you know, you get a charge down and it costs you the game. So, look at your team sheets. If they do play Munster and Tedesco and everyone plays, Grant included, then I'd be at the minus on that one. Let's have a look at the next match. It is a really interesting one. The Broncos up against the Raiders. Yeah, that's right. The Broncos playing on a Saturday night at Suncorp Stadium. So Adam Reynolds looks like he is back. Ezra Mam to partner him in the halves with Tyson Gamble out. Kurt Capewell rested. TC Rabadi in his place. So Staggs won't play. Cobbo, Carrigan and Haas, question marks. For the Raiders, Jordan Rapana, he's out. James Schiller into the starting side on the ding-a-ling. Jack White and Josh Papali'i, question mark around those guys as well. Corey Harawira-Naida is back. So another one of these games that's going to be difficult to price up, Tristan.
Yeah, very difficult to price up. And I'll be actually in attendance at this game. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be there after a Bucks party at Eagle Farm Races. So it's going to be a long night out there at the footy. So hopefully we get to see how that unfolds. But $1.51 the Broncos, $2.60 the Raiders. And geez, they've impressed me over the last month. 4.5's the line and 41.5 the total points. So that market has moved in a bit in Canberra's favour. Obviously the Bronx have got a number of players that have got to back up in Haas and Staggs, Cobbo and Carrigan and Capel. And I'd be surprised if, be surprised if all of them back up. I think there's a good chance 2 or 3 might miss. And I think at the moment, if I was having a bet, I'd certainly be on the Raiders, just with the fact that I would probably feel that both of their players do line back up. But yeah, it's another one. You just got to monitor team lists here, because there's going to be news and there's going to be ins and outs. And the Broncos are going really, really well. And I'm looking forward to seeing how Reynolds and Mann complement each other. But there's just a lot of uncertainty around this game at the moment.
Yeah, Reynolds playing is key. Some of those backups are also very key. Won their last 6. I guess there's some doubt about where they've faltered, but back at home, that's where they've been very strong, and they've just got points in them when it matters. But the Raiders, I didn't like that last result. I like the games. The 3 games prior I thought were very good. So we know that there's some good football in them. They have an amazing record as a road underdog. And I think that's one of the reasons that the line here has gone 6.5 to 4.5, because that record is just amazing as an underdog, not necessarily the favourite. So I'm with the Broncos. But the final teams and the makeup here is just critical to knowing how it ends up. If the Broncos go with what looks like being near full strength and just missing Staggs and Capewell, then I think that they can probably cover that 4.5.
Yeah, Carrigan and Haas, 1 or 2. They're going to be important, aren't they, too? I'm really interested to see Reynolds and Ezra Mann. I think that's a good fit. I think Tyson Gamble is a really competitive player with really limited skill set, but not the case for Ezra Mam. And I think that running game that he's got will really complement what Adam Reynolds does as a halfback, that organising halfback. So that's the real thing of interest to me. Papali'i, I would think, backs up because he only played the 23 minutes. Whiten's going to be a question mark because he was so physical last night. I really like what the Canberra Raiders have done over their last 5 or 6 weeks. Even the game they lost to Parramatta, I thought so physical. Joe Tarpany last week was phenomenal in the way he controlled that centre. They couldn't put him to ground in 8 of his 14 runs. They couldn't put him to ground. And 3 of the other ones he offloaded. So just incredible. Xavier Savage is starting to play some really good footy at the back. I love the +4.5 on this one. I really am keen about this. I think Hudson Young is playing some outstanding footy as well, Tristan.
I do too. I do too. And it seems like maybe is there any worthwhile throwing at any bait to Jared here? Because it'd be sacrilege to go to a footy game and not have a lunch bet on it. So
No,
Jared, you got an interest in opposing the plus here?
Listen, this little black duck's not here just to try and feed you two blokes.
A l'orange? Do we want duck a l'orange?
We need to get sound effects, Jimmy. We need to have a little cat meowing.
There we go. Oh, what's that? Oh, that was Jared backing out of a lunch bet again. All right.
Again.
All right. So hang on. Final word. Jared, all going?
No.
No, righto. Okay, there we go. Hey, this is an interesting one on Sunday. We've got the West Tigers in action as Brett Kamali is the interim coach up against the Sea Eagles. So at Campbelltown Stadium, Dave Nofaluma returns. He's on the ding-a-ling, and Jacob Little also back on deck. Jock Madden gets a bench spot. Manu Brown out to the 18th man. Adam Dewey keeps getting mentioned. He keeps getting pushed back as well. So he's not in your team sheet. The Sea Eagles, they got DCE. I'd suggest he back up. Kieran Foran back to 5'8". Schuster to the bench. Gee, he was good last week. So Carl Lawton's done his ACL, unfortunately, so he's out. Taniela Paseka, this will be interesting. He's been named 18th man after playing a return from knee injury last week in the New South Wales Cup. Be interesting to see what Desi Hasler does with Taniela. Market on this one, Tristan?
Yeah, this one's another tricky one to price. You've got so many outside influences where we know the Tigers now with Noddy as the coach for this weekend. DCE, obviously, will he back up will be a huge one. They need to win the Seagulls to stay in touch with the 8. So you feel that he's probably going to have to almost. And if he plays, then that probably puts it in a strong position to cover the 6.5 line. But you've got to obviously monitor that because he's so influential. I thought he went all right there other than his early defensive effort on the first try. But I think he probably complemented Munster pretty well there in the rest of the game. And it's $2.65, the Tigers, $1.48 Manly, 6.5. But we have laid the plus. It's into $1.80 the plus, $2 the minus, and 42.5 the total points.
I nearly got a migraine trying to work this one out. It's just got spiders all over it. West Tigers at Campbelltown. Now, we think that that's got to be a play, haven't we? Well, it's actually last games at Campbelltown. So there you go. I mean, the one thing I thought about this game is it just looks like it's got attack and points and some really loose defence from both teams in it. The Eagles, very good. I thought they would be the best last week and that they'd win comfortably. That they did. Yet I just didn't think against a really meek offering from the Warriors. At times, they just look really loose in defence. And that has been a constant of them when under a little bit of pressure. And I think the Tigers may have a slight point to prove this week. They come off a week off, a really poor offering against South where they just absolutely crumbled in the second half. They've had a week of inspection about themselves, about what they might do here. And maybe at Campbelltown, they offered a little bit more, but it did look to me a game. I just had a small lean to the Eagles. I just didn't like it. But I did think that there was points. Jimmy, I know you loved getting on the unders. If you wanted to go under, happy to maybe have a lunch bit about that.
With apologies to Charles Dickens, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. A tale of 2 sevens in this one. So I would think Daly Cherry Evans plays because that's what he'd want to do. Hey, I'm the Queensland skipper and the great players back up. And so I reckon he does that for his club team that pay him very well. And I would suggest that Jackson Hastings withdraws from this game. He's moon booted around for the last 3 or 4 weeks. He's had constant issues with his foot. We know the relationship he had with Michael Maguire. It'll be fascinating. And I'm not getting any mail from anywhere. I'm just saying, I think this will be really interesting. So if Hastings out, that -6.5 looks very, very juicy at the moment, doesn't it? I would suggest, if you're looking at it, that the -6.5 for Manly looks good at this point. The 42.5, Sunday, dry track, Campbelltown Stadium. I love cheering the tries, Gerard. You're not going to get me on an unders on this one, all right?
There you go. Jimmy, I thought Hastings was moving around okay over the last few days.
Oh, he's basically spent the last 3 weeks in a moon boot. He might play, but,
Yeah.
but you know, he's gone out of his way to ensure that he did play over the last couple of games because of his relationship with Michael Maguire. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. Next game up, it is Newcastle v Penrith. Now, this is going to be very interesting based on what you've been talking about earlier, Gerard, with the coaching situation at the Newcastle Knights. Kurt Mann back from an ankle injury, so that's the first time since round 7. Jacob Saifidi into the start side for Daniel. He's out with that knee injury. Leo Thompson onto the bench. So Kalen Ponga, does he back up? Dane Gagai, does he back up? Tex Hoy listed as a replacement there. Righto, here are the Panthers. Cleary, Martin, Yeo, couldn't play. Crichton, To'o, Luai, all have been named. See what happens with that one. Matt Eisenhuth is earned the bench spot ahead of Spencer Lenu, which is incredible. And all those guys there listed in the reserves to back up. Sean O'Sullivan, Kurt Falls, and Chris Smith. Good luck, Tristan.
This is a nightmare to price because I felt going into this game, with the position Penrith sit on the ladder and the fact they're overwhelming favourites and the fact that Kurt Falls and Sean O'Sullivan did so well, I guess the consensus from our end is that surely a number of the Panthers have to be rested. And I guess that still is my consensus and my gut feel. But at $5.25 the Knights, $1.17 the Panthers and 16 flat, it's such a big line. And you feel, I love the way Nathan Cleary came out and took accountability for that loss last night. And to me, some element out that he is going to be desperate to get out there onto the pitch for the Panthers and to put a win back on the board and to have a very strong hand in that performance. Now, whether his dad says, no, you're going to sit out of this game, have the week off, and we're going to go with the 2 young kids, that's a conversation to be had. But it's fascinating, and this line could swing 10 points very easily based on how these players line up. So 16 flat, I don't even know if we've got them priced in or out. It's just such a lottery. It's impossible to price this game.
Well, it's really hard to like the Knights. And I was against them against the Warriors a couple of weeks ago. The Warriors led 12-0 and then do only what the Warriors can do, and that was compound and get beat 24-16. The form line's not strong, but they're back at home. They've had a break. It is the strongest list that they've probably had for 6 or 7 weeks, given that they've had that break. Some rep players back. I'd expect Ponga plays full plus. And I think the home advantage is a key here. Their record against Penrith is horrible, lost 10 of their last 11. But the key here is the Panthers out of Sydney on a distant away leg. I mentioned this a few weeks ago when winning a lunch bet amongst you guys when they went to Rabina against the Titans, and it was a big line. Their record against a big line out of Sydney is really poor. They've only covered 3 of the last 12. I think 16's too big. I think Penrith win, but 16's way too big. So that's my play. And if anybody amongst us wanted to be on the Panthers to give up 16, don't let me hold you back.
Is Taumalolo playing?
See, that's one of the little sound recordings that we've now got.
That's right. Look, I totally agree with you, Tristan, around Nathan Cleary. Like below par performance, below expectation performance, but he put his hand up straight away and said, no, didn't get it done. So we're not talking about an average player here. We're talking about an elite player. So next game you go, right, when's my next opportunity to put things right? That's this week. I can see him kicking 6 from 6, 36 points to 16. So based on that, here's my proviso. You knew it was coming, so you shouldn't shock too many. Here's my proviso, Gerard. Cleary plays. I don't think that's asking for too much, is it?
Mate, he's already been named on the bench. You're in or you're in or you're out.
Mate, what does that mean these days?
It's Thursday, and if you want to have a bet, you're either in or you're out.
Hang on, I'll ring. Just ring on. No, I'm going away from it. You won't accept the terms and conditions?
No.
All right. Yeah, that's right. I think that was me cracking it.
So just to finalise, Jimmy, are you in or are you out?
I'm out.
What was that saying that you said, Jimmy? You'd rather die on your feet than live on your knees. You changed tune in the last.
He's got sore knees at the moment.
Rushing around with knee pads on at the moment, Tristan. Don't read too much into that either, by the way. Right, let's go to the game on Sunday night up there at Moreton Daily Stadium. This was incredible. The last time the Warriors took on the Sharks, they did that with just 11, 12 for long periods of the game, and they ended up winning. So the Warriors have a new coach. His name is Stacey Jones. Josh Curran named for his first game back for 6 weeks. Dynamis Louis on that bench as well, and Aaron Penne and Taniela Otakolo out of the side. Jesse Ramian back from suspension. Connor Tracy pushed out to 18th man. Wade Graham is listed amongst the reserves. He's working his way back from a foot injury, and Dale Finucane still not named in this side. This is a tough one with the Warriors up at Moreton Daily.
I'll still wake up in cold sweats after that game a month or so ago. So I'm not very happy to see this game back on the game list again, and it's no easier to price at the moment. We've got the new Warriors coach. How do the Warriors lift for Stacey Jones? $4.60 the market suggests. They might try, but they're not going to be good enough. $1.20 the Sharks, and 14.5 is the line. 43.5 the total points. So it's very hard to pick. You think the Sharks play at full strength and they should blow them away with the way the Warriors have been playing in recent times. But the Sharks, I think they've gone off the boil a little bit in the last month as well. So they'll be looking to bounce back to form. But 14.5, what do you think there, Gerard?
God, it's way too short. We're talking about the Warriors guys. The Warriors lost 5, 7 of their last 8. In the last 9 games, they've won 2, but even across all of those 9 games, including that, they've leaked 20 or more points every week at an average of 32. Absolutely crumbled from the opening minutes against Manly. I mean, they just were not there. They've been really weak for weeks on end now. I just don't see how they improve here. Yes, back at Redcliffe. Yes, there's been a change of the coach, but they haven't changed the list. They've lost the 2 big boppers in the middle that were going so well for them going back 5 or 6 weeks ago. They got bits and pieces in some areas, guys that I personally just don't think who are key guys who want to put in and have a crack. The Sharks have had the benefit of a week off. They've got no rep players that played last night. They've got a couple of key guys back and returning, which strengthens their list. Away is a little bit of a question mark, but their best football, they're potentially a top 5 side against the 2, I think 16th. 14.5 is way too low for me. I'm keen about the Sharks.
If I was being diplomatic, I'd say that the Warriors are going through some challenging times at the moment, and they would be best served by getting back home as quickly as possible. If I was less diplomatic, I'd say they are a rabble, the way they are trending at the moment, and getting worse. So I've been saying for 4 weeks now that Sean Johnson, and look, it was interesting to speak to Brett Kamali about it, calling games with him. He said he announced his retirement. He had 3 games to play, and he said for those 3 games, he just didn't want to put his head where he didn't have to. And I think that's what we're getting from Sean Johnson at the moment. It's getting to the point where it's embarrassing for him. And I don't know how he's surviving a video session with his peers. I don't know how his peers aren't looking at him going, mate, if you're not prepared to do it, why should I have to do it? So that's the challenge. The other thing I think from a Sharks point of view too, Gerard, Nico Hines has a fabulous opportunity over the next 2 games to show Brad Fittler, hey, if you're looking for a 14 that offers that little bit different, here's what I can do. We had Josh Hannay on radio today saying, I know I'm a Queensland assistant coach, but I've got no doubt that Nico Hines is be a guy that would strengthen what Brad Fittler's trying to do. And he made the point that I think you guys were making earlier, and that is that Queensland picked in-form NRL players. Nico's an in-form NRL player, and I think he can show that over the next couple of weeks, most specifically this week. So I'm with Gerard. I don't think 14.5 is enough for this one. All right, let's get to...
You're diving into that. Tristan, you're diving in, or it looks like the screen's paused?
I would not back the Warriors with Jimmy's money and not have to settle.
All right, here we go. Final game. This was a traditional derby. They won 8 comps between them in the 1980s. Oh, sadly for the Bulldogs, that seems an age ago, doesn't it? Monday afternoon at Accor Stadium, the Bulldogs are taking on the Parramatta Eels. So let's have a look. Bulldogs, am I right in saying unaffected by Origin? Jake Averillo at fullback, Corey Allen in the centres now. He was taken over from Dufty. Who knows what's going on there? Tavita Pangai, he could be a late call-up. No Luke Thompson. So that's a concern. Mike Acevo has recovered from that knee reconstruction. First NRL game since round 23 last year. Tom Opacek drops out. Wonga Blake, this is interesting. They're moving him to the centres. I think he's shown that wing is his best position. Will Penasini right to go. So we're interested around Ryan Madison, Junior Barlow, and Regan Campbell-Gillard, who have an extra day to recover from state of origin. Tristan?
Yeah, and that's probably got to give them a good chance of backing up. It's $1.15 the Eels, $5.50 the Bulldogs, and those 15. Seems a long time ago when that coaching decision was made over the course of the last couple of weeks, but these guys are still playing for a relatively new coach. 15.5 the line. There's already been support at the minus for the Eels. 185 the minus, 195 the plus. 43.5 the total points. Probably feels like one of those games with the 3 big boppers for the Eels back up. Then that line's probably too light, but there is just that little bit of uncertainty in the back of your mind whether that actually occurs. But yeah, time will tell. What are your thoughts, Jerry?
Yeah, I expect that Matheson plays, and maybe one of the other two. I mean, does it really matter? I mean, the Eels just win. It's then a matter of what number we pin on the game. They've won 11 of the last 12 against the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs have failed to cover the line at 9 of the last 10. Mick Potter took over 3 weeks ago. The 3 games he's been coached, they've leaked 30, 34 and 36 points. I mean, it's only heading one way, and that's South Hurry. Just can't see if against a patched up, almost reserve grade Panthers 2 weeks ago, they leaked 30. What if the Eels are serious here? Does this end up? I mean, it'd be 40 or something more. So with those outs, the Eels win comfortably. It's just a matter of whether you want to take the 16. I personally think at the moment, based on my assumptions around who plays, I think they probably cover that line, because with the extra couple of days break, I'd expect 2 of them, possibly all 3 play.
Yeah, I agree. Barring injury, unless they've picked up a niggle that we don't know about, then absolutely all 3 play. Like, this is, hey guys, Origin's 5 days ago. Let's get serious about this one. And then they'll be just too professional, too physical. They're so scrappy. The Dogs, we know that. They can play loose when they play loose, but not against a tight unit like the Parramatta Eels. So I really think it's interesting. I think Wonga Blake's a winger,
Yes.
Yeah. And so, I've been, Opacek's not an outstanding player. Maybe it's related to the fact that he's going to the Dolphins. I don't know. But, I just think that's a strange one. I thought Simonson might have been the player under pressure compared to Tom Opacek. But interesting to see how that one plays out. Yeah, I go at the minus as well. I'll follow the money on that one. All right, Gerard, we better get your tips for the week and, of course, your best bet.
Jimmy, when I get to the best, do you want to write that down? Because there was a few, I think, last week when we were doing the Origin preview that you didn't write down. But My tips, the Cowboys, the Rabbits, the Storm, the Broncos, the Eagles, the Panthers, the Sharks, the Eels. I thought the best of the week was definitely the Sharks. Also liked the Cowboys. The Sharks were 12.5 earlier on in the week. So if we can still hold on to that, let's take that as the best. If you're listening to the podcast tonight or tomorrow, I think they covered the 14.5 anyway. So the Sharks might to the wall.
So just clarifying, I can't get on Penrith with Nathan Cleary on Sunday, but you can get the minus 12.5 that was 4 days ago. Can we clarify that?
And you did see the message that was exchanged between us?
Is that right, Tristan?
Yeah, Jared's got the good blokes top fluck. Rule.
Gee, that's hard to get. It's really hard to get that. Good luck.
Well, it's not hard to get if you actually bet live with the market.
Couple of the bottom fluck for the dead shit. That's pretty easy to pick up that one. I've copped that a couple of times. I know that, but anyway. Okay, my best go back to the Broncos v Raiders game. I love the plus 4.5. I was thinking, about staking plans and all that, Jared. Let me know if you want to have a chat about that. But I'm just going to go the 100 on the plus 4.5.
All right. Well, I'm going to make your staking plan easy, Jimmy, because we don't need that gift or the sound effect. I'm going to go 100 on the Raiders I'll get it done on Saturday night. So we've effectively got 100 by 100 on the Raiders. So
listen, if you two are just going to get all excited about the Raiders, I'm not going to let you pass. So I'm in for the lunch bet on the Broncos at the minus 4.5.
You're going to minus 4. Yahoo! We forced him into it. Yeah. Hey, strategy 101, Tristan. Well done, mate. We got him. Yeah.
Listen, there's 2 or 3 games elsewhere in this round that I'm happy to be confident about. That is not one I want to bet into with anything other than a lunch bet. I'm happy to take you 2 on. So Broncos minus 4.5, and I believe that we also have a lunch bet on the Cowboys at the minus 12.5.
That's brilliant news for the Pass It On clothing charity as well, because it guarantees it will, at least with a couple of fines or the Raiders getting a very sizable windfall, there'll be a good little donation put in on the back of that game. So I think everyone wins on that scenario, and gives me an extra reason to cheer on Saturday night.
Who went the Dragons plus 12.5?
I'm on that similar product range as what you just mentioned, Jimmy.
Righto. Okay. So Jared, you and I are with the Cowboys minus 12.5, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, can you take us to a racing bet, please?
Well, Jimmy, I'd just like to mention that last week I said I wanted to have my racing bet on the series of the Origin, and that now happens to be Queensland at 2:30, which as of today I think is about $1.49. So we've got that one. We've got that one still rolling. We won't obviously spend any time on the 100 you wasted last week on a horse tip, but let's see if we can get some of it back. Randwick race to number 8. Now the Whites breed a very good horse over time and had some wonderful Group 1 winners. They might have another one here with some talent. Number 8 called Yankees, bred beautifully by American Pharaoh. Only had the 1 start, went forward, sat on the speed. Its closing sectionals last 100 were really up. It just looks like a horse on the way up. And as I said, they've over the last 30 years bred some wonderful horses, good quality ones. So race 2 at Randwick, number 8, Yankees. If we can, we might take the $5 now, or whichever way Tristan wants to play that. But I think it'll give us a big shout.
We'll put it on at the $5. No problems at all, Jared. So that'll be on. And unfortunately for me, I can't tip Bandit Net. It was successful again last night, but that was too late for the other podcast. So I did put it into the chat group, but that one we can't claim as our bet on that one. But so I'm going to sit out on the racing. I had one that I thought might have been a chance, but it's been scratched. So we'll keep our powder dry and work towards next week.
By the way, Jared, you tipped 7 winners in a row to start the year, and now you start talking about wasting my 100 on the race bet. But anyway,
I'm not sure it got to 7. It might have been 4.
6. Negotiate
like Queensland, you're only performing.
Well, 6 is not 7. You've just given yourself up.
Very close to it, though. Jared, do you want the good news or the bad news?
Oh, we're in the same race.
No, we're on the same horse.
Oh, are we?
So the good news is that I'm backing strongly Yankees as well. So the trialled well, won comfortably on debut. We'll take that $5 for the talented filly. And unfortunately, the bad news is we got the dead ship bottom fluck on it. So there we go.
Well, that is the first in 2 years we've ever landed on the same horse, Jimmy. So, dear God, give it strength. Tristan, that's an amazing card at Eagle Farm on Saturday. And race 7, the JJ Atkins, and race 8, the Stradbroke. I mean, the Stradbroke always draws a good field. And, gee, it's a very open race. I think if you find the winner, you'll do well. Probably a little bit. 15 in Isotope for Gollan. It does look primed. It's on a track that it does run very well. But, gee, it's a very open race.
I completely agree with you. And funny enough, if I was to pick one each way in that race, I'll be probably lobbing on the same one. But just the early betting has been very, very wide. There's been punters chiming into a lot of different horses at value. So it's going to be a cracking race. Really, really good card up there at Brisbane. The track and the weather conditions look really good. So hopefully we get a great day of racing. And yeah, it's the Crown and the Queensland Carnival, and it's good to get a great field lining up for it as well.
Couple of things I want to make mention of before we sign off. Exciting news coming up for the Top Sport NRL podcast too. So we'll make mention of that in the coming weeks. I'm sure the listeners will want to get involved in that. And a great win for Pass It On Clothing. Don't know if you saw across social media that Chris Vagg and his team were visited and had been under duress from New South Wales Police, who felt that they were violating existing traffic conditions by parking where they did and in breach of those. And look, Avery and I, my daughter, we went in and helped out Chris one night, and it was a completely different experience. He was agitated the whole time, Chris, because he was worried about copping another significant fine that was obviously very hard to pay from a charity point of view. New South Wales Premier Dominic Perrottet went down to Martin Place on Tuesday night, spoke with Chris, and all of those issues that he's had there with the New South Wales Police, who are only doing their job, seem to be alleviated. So that is great news, guys.
And Jimmy, the other great thing too was Chris had their annual luncheon last Friday to raise money. It sold out in weeks. Again, it was a great fundraiser. And, people like Phil Gould were there to support it. It was just an amazing event. I hope to get down to it next year. But again, I think they had over 100 people in a room. So many raised for a charity. So if anybody wants to drop onto Twitter, Facebook or Instagram and look up Pass It On Clothing and can help with any sort of donation, they do just amazing work.
There's many ways to describe round 14 of the National Rugby League. Fascinating is the way that I'm going to go. There will be eyes peeled for so many of these games. We wish you all the very best, gentlemen, and enjoy your footy this weekend.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, gents.